how excited are you guys to talk to our favourite Hemmer and to fill the Hemmer voids?
I'm already in the lift. Let's go.
Captain's Pod, stardate 510122.4. Welcome aboard the Starship's Enterprise, and thank you for joining us as we take a brief shore leave from the world of CinemaSins to explore the universe of Star Trek. I am your Captain Ian Whittington, and with me as always, we'd be sad if she was violated by the Gorn and left to die on an ice planet. It's Ambassador Deneé Hughes.
Thank you for mourning my death. And apparently I'm very popular.
And rumours of his death have been greatly exaggerated. He's just been on special assignment at Starbase 80. It's Aenar Dicer, the Commodore.
Oh, hi, guys.
Welcome back.
I have been summoned, and I have arrived.
So
what are you
what's with
doing
your
on the ship?
what do you? Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I just showed up. There was some subspace beacon
good.
More, give me more. I want more technobabble. Let's do it. Come on, we're in.
And
There's
it
a
just called me
subspace
here. And it was like,
transmission.
you step over to the teleporter, mister. You got somewhere to be. And I was like, all right, listen, I do what the Federation.
Did you just say teleporter?
Whatever
said
the transmogrifier. He
Right.
said, just
That's
step
right.
into the transmogrifier.
Goodness.
You've got somewhere to be.
That's
and
right.
And now
That's
I'm
the
here.
one,
I've
yeah.
got my lightsaber. I've got
get
my.
out.
Oh, no. Oh,
we
dear.
have company, and you're. This is why we can't have nice Enars.
Listen. Somebody was like, "Step through the Stargate. You'll be there, and then
Killing me.
you'll know where you're at."
Absolutely killing me.
Wow. This is going well so
Wow.
far.
This is a lot. Well, this is not what we actually came here to do. It wasn't
You're
just to
welcome
riv
for
each
showing
other.
up, by the way.
Oh, yeah, no. Computer delete Commodore? Is that going to
What?
work?
You can't do that.
I am a computer. Remember, I'm a
Oh,
Commodore.
no.
I'm a
Oh.
Commodore
He's
64.
a Commodore 64.
Oh, so we definitely can delete you then.
That's
great.
right,
That's
absolutely,
amazing.
yes.
I'm gonna,
No. I like this version. He's sassy.
super sassy. I'm going to find whatever you're plugged into and reverse the polarity. Right. Well, that is not what we're here for. We're not even here to talk about a specific episode of Star Trek. We have a special guest waiting for us in 10 Forward. It's Bruce Horak. Chief Engineer Hammer.
Okay, in your imaginations, the Ambassador Deneé has just shoved Commodore aside, pushed the captain
us in
into
the
the
dust.
wall,
Yeah.
and just took a big sprint to the lift. I'm headed to 10 Forward.
I got this, people. You've just belayed all of the controls and the overrides. You've locked yourself in there, and a terrified Hemmer is just waiting to be
You don't know
accosted.
if he's terrified. Let's find
No,
out.
he's ready for it. He's clearly ready for it. Well, how excited are you guys to talk to our favourite Hemmer and to fill the Hemmer voids?
I'm already in the lift. Let's go.
I'm super excited to be back in another strange new world. And yeah, let's talk to him.
Yeah,
I'm
let's do
leaving without you.
With that, two of us will see you in 10 Forward. Apparently, she's already there.
Do I just step over here in the transmogrifier, or what is the?
I will vaporize you with my eyes. Welcome to 10 Forward, everyone, where we have received a very, very special distress call in which we are going to rush all the way to the USS. Don't interrupt me, Ambassador. There is a distress call that we're dealing with. To Valio Beta 5 to head to the USS Peregrine and to rescue a certain chief engineer by the name of Mr. Hemmer. Did Hemmer go by Mr. Hemmer, Bruce? Or was it just Hemmer?
I think it's just Hammer.
Just
Yeah.
Hemmer. Well, either way, we have Bruce Horak with us.
Yay!
Welcome to the USS Enterprise. How are you doing, sir?
I'm still alive. I'm still kicking. Yeah.
That, honestly, to everyone's relief. It is. I think early on I predicted if this show does anything to that precious engineer, I'm not going to leave because I love Star Trek too much, but I'm going to have really angry thoughts about the situation. Yeah, I think that's the immediate thing I'd want to ask is the outpouring of love for Hemmer and that character. Did you feel that? Because the listeners of this show just went crazy for Hemmer.
Oh yeah, right from the start. I mean, it's just been overwhelming. When I was cast in the role, they told me pretty much right off the top that Hammer was gonna go, and that was, I think ultimately it's better to know than to get the surprise of like a week before we're shooting. Oh, by the way, you're pitching it in this one.
Yeah, pack up your desk and go.
Yeah, here's your pink slip.
Yeah.
Or your red slip, I guess, in Star Trek parlance.
Yeah.
But so they really. This was my conversation with Henry Alonso Myers, who was in my callback, and he really outlined. He said, "Listen, we're building Hammer to be, in their words, was a fan favorite." And I think, as he said, they had a really hard time with it because they fell in love with the character as well, and I think that was difficult for them. I know that I think it was Davey Perez who wrote that. Episode 109, and it got the script duties got bandied about quite a bit of like who's going to be the one that has to deal with
who's going to be the one to destroy everybody's heart.
Honestly, it was just in reading the script, knowing that it was coming, I was trepidatious because I really wanted him to go cool, and that was something that I said early on. I'm like, please just make it a cool death. Like I don't want to be the guy who's like, hey, what's this button do?
It just opens the door into space. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye.
Useless death. But and then when I got to read it, it was it was a lot of emotions, but ultimately the feeling that I just went, yes, thank you for making it a noble death, a valiant death, one that that was felt. And then when the show, when I saw what they had done with the footage, and actually I got a pre-screening of it before the series came out, and I was just so happy with. I mean, I was happy with the show.
Yeah.
Seeing how it turned out, as a Star Trek fan myself, I really had my fingers crossed that it was going to be good, and it is. I think I'm really happy with the first season of Strange New Worlds, and the episode itself. I just thought, wow, it was just is touching and moving and beautiful and all that stuff, and he got to go cool.
I couldn't agree more. I don't know if it's like
I don't agree. It was awful. It was the worst. It was a terrible episode.
The worst episode. When you just delete that from the canon, it didn't happen. You just magically reappear in season 2, and all is well.
It was just a dream.
Yeah, stranger things have happened. I think I don't know if we're all slightly pessimistic, but I, for one, was just like, I want Strange New Worlds to be good, but I've been burned before. And then when it just turned up and just said, bam, I'm here, this is what the show is going to be. And it's just incredible. I could not have been more relieved or happier just to have this incredible, largely episodic Star Trek show back on TV that has just got an incredible cast and is just visually stunning with some top tier like Star Trek episodes.
For a little bit of a random background, so Ian is like the Star Trek super nerd, born into a Star Trek family.
No.
Show the tattoo.
Mom, show the tattoo.
Am I doing the tattoo? Okay, we'll show the tattoo.
You go over to his parents' house. It's the warp core.
Enterprise
He's got the warp core when you walk into the house.
That was really hard to install. That was tricky.
Well, lulled them to sleep at night. Then you've got myself. I was raised on TNG on TV, raised home to watch it, but that's pretty much all I watched. So this is sort of like this podcast, and all of us getting together is sort of like a reintroduction of someone who loved the material into the rest of it, which is a lot. And then Aaron, what's kind of like, because you're kind of like me, right? Where you
I'm
have like a
probably
little sampling.
like the least familiar with all the ins and outs of Star Trek. I know, but no, it makes like for me, the OG stuff is the stuff I'm most familiar with. I used to watch that in reruns a lot. I've caught episodes of TNG certainly before the movies. I've seen all the movies because I'm a movie guy. But yeah, it's always a world I've loved. I've just never dove in like you guys have.
So then we sort of watched Strange New Worlds, and so we're all like holding our breath for different reasons. And so to watch it and to every single week go, guys, it's still really good, right? Like this is really like, right? This is amazing.
Every single week, this is great. This is getting better and better. We're like kind of waiting for the other foot to drop. But
Hammer was like that character that was, for me, an unexpected, refreshing character because he was so straightforward and confident And the show kind of let that be who he was at first and then slowly give more depth. And for me, the Elysian Kingdom was when the character just like blew up for me, where I was like, I'm a Hammer fan for life. And
my goodness. How fun was that episode?
Honestly, it was the most fun. I mean, I had, I think, of the most shoot days on that particular episode.
Oh, I bet.
Which was a lot of prosthetic time, which, you know, God bless the prosthetics department, because I mean,
my goodness,
if the actors are doing 12-hour days, prosthetics is doing 3.5 before and then another hour after, right? So they're just absolutely incredible for that. You know, it took about probably 10 years off my skin for exfoliation.
Amazing.
Yeah, no, I'm actually 61. And it was just so much. I mean, from reading the script, but actually before we read the script, I had a costume fitting, and they showed me the design of the wizard outfit.
So cool.
And it's just so cool. And I started for the first time in my life, I started a D&D campaign around the time I got
amazing.
casted.
Yeah.
So I couldn't say anything to my fellow campaigners, but
you played a wizard.
My character in D&D is a wizard, and
that's amazing.
I want to work every day getting to play a wizard, and although he doesn't.
Great.
No, anyway. It was just a riot.
You know
Plus,
what this show needs an Aenar wizard. That's what it needs.
so many things off the Star Trek bucket list. You know, I got to transport in, I got to play with the transporter, and in that episode, I got to mess around with the communicator, and you know, run around the hallways with Babs, and I mean, it was great. And that episode, I got to interact the most with other members of the cast. We shot that first season like really strict COVID lockdown protocol. So between takes, we weren't hanging out. We were all in, you know, those weird sort of puppy dog plastic shield. Or I was anyway, to protect the maybe that was a practical joke they were playing on me.
Yeah, that was probably just for you.
It's a question for the reunion.
Yeah. Like, wait a minute. Why was I the only one in the dog thing? It's so you wouldn't lick your wounds. Boo! Too soon. So I got to really spend some time with particularly with Babs on that episode, and I just learned so much about the camera work and the approach. I'm a theater guy myself, so I that's my whole background. Strange New Worlds was really my first, you know, big foray into film and TV, I mean, it's just a different beast from doing theater work. You get takes and you get tries, and just the size of performance and how you approach it. And I got to watch Babs, who, you know, he gave so much in every single take. And I remember I can't remember the director's name on that episode. It'll come to me. But she sort of made this great comment after doing a couple of takes with Babs and saying, wow, he gives something different in every take, and it's something that they use. And I just walked away from that thinking, oh yeah, I'm not going to just go and do the same take over and over again. I'm going to try to play within it. And the scene where we're confronted in the hallway, and Hammer pulls out the communicator and does the whole magic of science.
Yes. Oh, it's so good.
I just got to play, and I got to mess around and take what was on the page and go, I'm going to just try this. Like, what if he's really into it? And what if he's, you know, like conjuring his best Ian McKellen or whatever?
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's so fun.
That's what I was saying is like, that's when, for me, and that was one of my favorite parts too, was I could tell like, Hammer's this really intelligent character that knows kind of better than everybody else. And in this moment, it's like he kind of knows what's going on, but he has to play along. So you might as well kind of like, you know, have fun with it a little bit and push things and enjoy. And I really enjoyed watching you emote through that character. Was it hard to emote with the prosthetics on, since we're just thinking about the prosthetics? And I love watching shows like Face Off and stuff to learn how all that stuff puts together. But like, is it kind of hard to emote through that?
I mean, having the antenna probably helps, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You get to wiggle those around.
It's really about the telepathy. No, he well, the great thing about that prosthetic is that, or prosthetics, I should say, it's not one piece; it's 15 individual pieces, and they're made out of such a thin material that you actually get quite a bit of articulation with facial movement, which is a bit of the trick with mask work. Is oftentimes the masks are really static, but those ones can move quite a bit. So there was stuff happening in the eyebrows and the forehead and the cheeks and everything. The only part of my actual face that gets seen through those prosthetics, I think, is like my lip.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. But everything else is covered. And then it's my eyes, but then they went back and they did CG over the eyes anyway. So that's pretty much it. And so any articulation that's happening, I mean, that's all just coming straight through the I think it's silicone, but it's amazing.
Some of the best lip acting I've ever seen.
Yes.
Bruce. It was astonishing.
And just in case it's going to drive you crazy, I looked it up, and the director was Amanda Rowe. If IMDb is correct,
that is absolutely.
You mentioned Babs, and Dr. Mbenga was absolutely another just favourite of the show. I think we could have happily had a spin-off show of Grumpy Hemmer and Grumpy Dr. Mbenga just on adventures. Maybe they get stranded in a shuttlecraft somewhere. Like what a great pairing to have on the show as well.
Well, honestly, just getting to everybody on that show is incredible. But I'd say that episode, it was Babs, and then of course there's the scenes with Celia Uhura, who again is just extraordinary.
My goodness, what awesome casting, and what like a tricky role to cast as well. Like with the history, just unbelievable.
I have another question. Is that okay, Captain Whittington?
Yeah. Hey, Chief Engineer's in charge today.
Oh,
one of those rare occasions where Scotty is in charge of the Enterprise.
So I think Elysian was one of my favorites, and then what I call the Hemmer death episode is my least favorite because Hemmer dies. But was that one scary to film? Like on set? I mean, that looked so terrifying. All of it was so intense. Like, how did it feel to be like in a horror movie?
Yeah, just going everywhere.
Well, the director of that episode, Chris Byrne, again, another extraordinary talent. I believe some of his past work included like Hannibal and things like that. So it has a bit of background in tension and terror. The thing that I will never forget is the scene. I think one of our first days on set was kind of breaking into the access port of the Peregrine and then setting up, or like tapping into the ship or whatever. So they had one of the hallways kind of pulled apart and made into that access port, and then around the corner was sick bay, which was kind of our green room for the day. So I'm pretty sure this was all on purpose, but it was dark, it was cold, and the light in the hallway between the sick bay and where we were shooting was like on a strobe.
No, guys, we can't even filming down here. Why is it flickering?
Yeah, and it was just like, there was snow blowing and, all that fake soap and all that beautiful. I don't want to ruin everything, but there's just the whole vibe off camera was tension.
That's
and
perfect.
I think that reads into it. And the scene where Uhura and I kind of go into the engineering section and the Gorn comes up and attacks. Again, it was just like, I think we were on the AR wall for that day, but right before he would yell action, and he was the kind of director who wasn't sitting off where the screens were and watching what was being shot from what they call Video Village. He was right with the camera and oftentimes lying underneath it or like right behind it, and he would yell like, space movie, horror movie, action, go, like the tension up, you're scared, go. And it was like,
Ripley, act like it.
Having that kind of energy in the room, it's like you don't have to start from cold, your motor's already revving, and that just makes it so much easier to flow between takes, especially on those really long days. I think Uhura and I, Celia and I had a couple of pretty long days at the AR wall shooting that, the Gorn spitting scene and all that. So he kept that energy up, and he was just as much into the genre and the style as the episode is. I really think it translates in that one. I thought that was a really tricky episode to shoot. You're getting into pathos of someone sacrificing themselves. You're watching Ethan have to go through this incredible explosion of rage, and then there's the touching death scene, and top all that with I want to call it a tribute, but a parallel to Aliens.
Yeah. I think we
So
picked up on that.
You get a lot of packed into that one particular episode, and I realize it's not everyone's favorite, but it's pretty high on my list of exciting weeks to shoot.
It's one of the beautiful things about Star Trek is that it can swing for different genres. It can just pick a lane, and that week that's what we're going to be. And this week we're going to do horror, but somehow we're gonna kill off a character and make it emotional at the end as well. Like, it's such a gift of a show to watch, and what a great playground to be in. And the consequence is it's not every single episode is going to be everyone's cup of tea, but I think it's wide, attracts such a broad spectrum of people into it.
Well, and you get that from, if an episode isn't your favorite, it's like, come back next week and you may have your favorite.
It's going to be something different. You're going to play D&D next week, so you'll be fine. I think that's a good segue into what's your background with Star Trek other than now playing the amazing Hammer. How did you find Star Trek? What's your level of nerddom?
I guess on a scale of 1 to 10, I would be about a 7 with Star Trek. I was raised on it. I watched the original series in reruns. When Next Generation came out, I followed that pretty fiercely. My dad was a high school English teacher and a huge science fiction fanatic. He actually wrote his master's thesis on teaching science fiction in high school, and there's a lot of references to Roddenberry.
Oh, that's amazing.
And that, so it was really a part of my growing up. And also comic books, like we had Star Trek comic books, and I had a couple of photo novels of some of the original series episodes. I will not forget The Trouble with Tribbles, and of course City of which is part of my life. And then of course, being Canadian, it's anything that Shatner had to do with. It's like we all had our Shatner impressions.
Of course.
That's true.
It's what you do. And that was inadvertent. I wasn't even trying for Shatner there. I was actually
I thought you were. That was amazing.
No.
Accidental Shatner.
It happens.
Ooh, a total sidebar, but on one of the last days when we had our big media rush and we were doing all of our interviews and things, they had everyone from the cast record the opening monologue, Space Final Frontier. First of all, I couldn't get through the first take without crying. Second time I did get through it, and I think one of the sound engineers said, "Yours was the most Shatner," and I felt like, "Thank you. That's a gold star."
Yeah.
That's
amazing.
I followed. I kind of, I got into my mid 20s and early 30s and I got interested in other things, but I lost track of Star Trek, and then. And I can't remember how many years ago it was now. It's probably about 2015 or so. I was down in the US, and our Netflix account, suddenly I could watch any Star Trek I wanted. It was unavailable at the time in Canada. And I just totally binge watched Enterprise. And,
amazing.
Skipping the theme song,
that's okay. It's not for everyone.
With Star Trek again, and being a huge fan of Scott Bakula and Quantum Leap, I just kind of went right back into it. And then after that, went back and binge watched all the other series. And then as soon as the pandemic hit and I found out that I was going to be playing Hammer, I just went through as much of it as possible. I mean, I watched all the movies when they came out on the screen because I'm a movie guy myself. But just going back and binging all of the series is just like, wow, the canon is thick.
Right? I mean, 800 plus episodes, and yet it's still doing fresh stuff. Like, that's what's so stunning about Strange New Worlds. It's still managing to find fresh stories with all of that background.
And with passionate people, too, like, because you're not done yet. So it's like the people who are involved in this wonderful world, it's not like they're like, oh, thank you for playing this character. They're like, you belong with us. Let's go play some more. And, just continuing to work together. I've really enjoyed that part of learning about Star Trek universe and talking to people like yourself that are involved in the writing or producing and acting. It's just been such a fun thing because there's such a passion for the content.
There really is. And on that note, I got to go down to Las Vegas at the end of August for my very first ever Star Trek convention. And I'm more of a fan than some of the people that were there.
Yeah.
But I love, oh my God, they have like a triple claw machine. That's amazing. And then I got to meet some of the cast members from the other shows, and every single one of them, they just said, "Welcome to the family."
Oh, man.
Welcome here. And, really just kind of floored me. I got to meet such a fan moment, but I got to meet Jonathan Frakes.
Amazing.
Not only did he have such wonderful things to say about Hammer and, what I was able to do with that character, but he just said, like, this is your life now. You're going to come to these conventions and it's just going to be love. It's going to be love for the rest of your life. And who wouldn't want that? Who wouldn't want to go there? And that was the beautiful thing about Vegas was it was my first kind of mass meeting with fans face to face, and it was the line of people who were coming up and expressing their condolences, like, and their love. Hey, it's like going to your own funeral.
Yeah, it really is. What a unique perspective to have.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I mourn the loss of Hammer, but I'm so glad that other people do too, and it's not like, oh, we're glad you're gone, or
right?
Yeah, right.
The other side of it was that kind of worst nightmare of they write it like a kind of not a noble death or a forgettable death, and then it just kind of goes off into the ether like somebody ejected out of the space. And
that meant something.
I'm happy. Yeah, I'm happy with that.
And I like that the writing sort of let the character breathe a bit too. It's not like Hammer was in every single episode front and center. There was enough.
Hammer was in not enough episodes.
Can we
what else would you like to have seen him do?
Everything.
Oh my God, everything.
Just be there, just on the bridge. Like, I wanted to ask the question, why is Hammer here? He should be in engineering. I wanted to ask that because he should have been everywhere.
Like, I want like a little one-off like Hammerverse sort of thing, right? Like, you know how in Marvel they do the thing where it's like, what if, and then it's like, what if something else had happened? Like, what if Hammer didn't, have to be that guy that had to have the Gorn do the thing, and when he jumped, somehow, something happened and he survived and was able to Gorn it up and go back, and now he's like he's teaching school or something, maybe cooking classes. Yeah, there's so much.
There's so much, and honestly, I was going to say backstage, that's my theater thing again, but off camera, we would sit around and come up with our own, alternate versions. And I remember just one day, the cast all sitting around and saying, we want to do this kind of episode. What about this kind of episode? And as soon as the writers walked by, we got louder. Sally and I had a great day of imagining, like I said, how does Hammer survive and what happens when he does survive? And what would that, and I just, since that episode has aired, and I just love reading the commentary and the comments that fans are writing about how we didn't see him land, and
exactly
and
right.
It's like,
exactly. There's still hope.
My personal favorite, which I'm pitching now, and I'm hoping it gets to the writers, is that
they all listen to this podcast.
This will get straight to
it. Yeah. So he does get infected with Gorn, and of course, Gorn, because of his special DNA, some of his DNA gets mixed in with the Gorn that erupts from him.
Ooh,
and that Gorn goes on to join Starfleet eventually and is half Aenar, half Gorn, so it has a conflict within itself, a pacifism, and also that sort of... and then it will team up with... so Hammer's son, whatever the kid's name, Hammer or whatever... grows up and then has to team up with Lon's kid as well, and they go on.
That's beautiful.
It's a buddy cop adventure, sort of, maybe even a Perfect Strangers.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm selling.
That's amazing. Yeah, my internal canon is just a shuttle came in, beamed him up at the last second, and just nice and simple. I don't need them to overcomplicate it. I just, as long as he's back, that's
and then for whatever reason, he just didn't make contact with anybody.
Yeah.
He just went on his own way.
He doesn't have to.
My work here is done.
He's very confident. He doesn't have to.
Yes. You're suggesting that my version is complicated?
Bye. It's been lovely talking to you. We'll see you next time.
I'll take over. Bad.
Amazing. I'm really glad you touched on it really briefly. The pacifism thing, the Hammer put forward so much. That was an absolute joy to see talked about on screen. It is so rarely spoken about, and I will throw to my lovely co-host Aaron, who has a special viewpoint on this. Not special viewpoint, but has a viewpoint on this as well.
That's all. I
just know that really spoke to you, didn't it?
No, it's nice. It's nice. One of the things I've always loved about Star Trek is its ability to really dig into ideas and philosophy and think through it in a way that isn't pedantic or preachy, but it really allows you into the conversation. So as somebody who's been a pacifist and has had to answer questions about if somebody was attacking your family, you really wouldn't, be violent, and had to think through those things and talk through those things. It was neat to see a character who was also talking through those things and being those things. And representation takes a lot of different forms. And certainly the forms it takes with me aren't as important as many other forms.
Indeed, yes.
But it is nice to see a pacifist on the screen in that way. So yeah, that was really cool. So thank you for doing that.
Well, that's all thanks to the writers, but it was. Yeah, I agree, and something that really struck me in the shooting of it. That conversation that he has about pacifism. And I mean, I try to be a pacifist in my life. I think that, I still have moments of upset, shall we say. And it's a constant conversation. It's a constant dialogue and a constant facing of it. And I'm so glad that in his sacrifice he does face that.
Yeah.
In himself. It's like, yeah, sure, we could find some other way through this or what, but the sacrifice is the thing that sort of sets him apart. Yeah. And also that's the pacifist that's the engineer and is the one that's driving the ship.
It makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Without that energetic, without the core, like the ship isn't going to move. And the fact that it's a pacifist kind of who maintains that, I think is it's really beautiful. It's a great
building
metaphor.
Instead of destroying. Yeah, it's a great metaphor.
Yeah.
And the way that he's confident too, because sometimes it's you'll see characters, and we always try to see maybe reflections of ourselves in characters, and that's what we relate to. And there's a lot to love about Hemmer. Aaron's finding the things he enjoys. One of the things I've mentioned a couple of times is just his confidence, almost an unapologetic confidence, a willingness to talk about it, but it's almost this sort of approach to this is how it is for me, and I hope that you can deal with it.
Yeah. I've been around. I've been,
and I really appreciate that personally.
It's an open confidence. It's not a closed confidence, and there's a difference between the two. And it's another thing I really liked about the characters was an open confidence. It's a confidence that says, "I'm still listening. I'm still." Engaged in you as a person.
It wasn't defensive.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It was just this kind of this is how it is. And I think that's a really refreshing element to a character. And I don't know if you had, a list of character traits and you're trying to kind of emulate that or where that came from in your performance. But I could hear it in how Hemmer spoke, even the first time we see him on screen where we're just trying to figure out who is this person, and a lot of people knew about Hemmer because they'll see things ahead of time. But the first appearance on screen was my first experience with that alien race or any of it. And so I was just fascinated for so many reasons. And to be able to give all of that so quickly it was a delight, because I think that's part of the complexity of the character that we all wanted to continue to dig into. And I wish he wasn't dead. Sorry, I'm fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine.
I mean, he slipped into that mentor role for Uhura so easily. It's fantastic writing, and it's just not what I predicted from the chief engineer either. And it was this very, like Deneé said, confident exterior, but then this nurturing mushy center that Uhura got to dig into as well.
Yeah, it's just such a lovely arc, and knowing that at the beginning it just made it so much fun to play, especially that first scene where Spock and I are sort of hazing her a little bit.
The tension in that scene is beautiful.
Yeah, it's just kind of fun and a bit of a smile, and how he softens to her over the course of it, which is nice. He doesn't just maintain one kind of steady level or reset back to that at the beginning of it. So he's got a nice arc. He's got a really nice journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so much more fun to play.
Well, the burning question is, do you think we will see Hemmer again? But more importantly, do you think we will see Bruce Horak again somewhere in Star Trek canon?
Yeah, what I can legally say.
Yes.
NDAs aside. or actually NDA, in effect, is that the Star Trek career of Bruce Horak is not over.
Fantastic. I love it. That's a beautiful answer. That is that's all I need to know. I can go to sleep happy. I can be beamed into space and be very, very happy with that.
I'm really excited to watch season 2, I have to say.
Yeah.
I'm kind of on pins and needles about it, and I really, it's like waiting a year whenever they're going to release it.
Oh my goodness, I'm not thinking about it.
I would assume it takes them a year to do it, but I can't wait. I think folks are going to be thrilled.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm so excited. Like to see what the show did through pandemic and in its inaugural season and trying to find its groove, and how well it pulled that off to even think about what they can achieve in season 2 now that they're comfortable, there's less restrictions, it's established. I could not be more excited, and I'm glad that we've had Lower Decks, Prodigy, and Picard to tide us over until our next big flagship with Strange New Worlds. It's so great.
On that note, each of the departments on the show made wrap gifts for within themselves. So, for instance, the prosthetics crew, there was Strange New Worlds t-shirts with prosthetics crew on the t-shirt, which I was fortunate enough to get one of those.
Yeah,
so great.
Stunt department made this really great shirt, and it says stunts on the side. And because I got a day, it was cut from the episode, but I actually got a day in rigging where they flew me like 3 stories into the air and then shot it backwards so you can see Hammer fall out of the ship. But that didn't make it to the that's cutting. So I got a stunts t-shirt.
That's amazing.
Various departments and the wardrobe department, who I love the wardrobe department.
Oh, that's Deneé's happy place.
The character is there, and they made water bottles, little Star Trek water. I wish I had it with me, but it's got the little Starfleet insignia on it, and then it says wardrobe, and then around it says "Look what you did" or "Look what you've gone and done."
Oh, that's
and it was
amazing.
What this incredible crew was able to accomplish under such restrictions, and it's like everything was kind of piled against, and through the formidable odds, they pulled out, I think, one of my favorite first season of Star Trek ever.
I think it is the strongest first season that we've ever seen. I genuinely do. Like, Lower Decks was what had it for me, but Strange New Worlds just like turned up and said, "Yep, we're here now. This is Star Trek. Deal with it." Yeah. It's so great. I love it.
I'm not saying this just to be lame. I think it's my favorite I've ever experienced in TV, and it reminds me a little bit of when I watched Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson, and then I watched all of the making of stuff. It's all I wanted to do after I'd watched episodes. Like, how did they do that? Because all the 3D printed stuff that they did for the wardrobe, especially in the Elysian Kingdom, and just the leather pieces and how they hand dyed the different fabrics and just the detail, and that's what I loved about Lord of the Rings is the detail that they went into to really honor the material source. And because I'm a Lord of the Rings fan, I was nervous to go into that movie because I'm like, please don't let this be lame.
Don't screw it up.
Please.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to expect with Strange New Worlds, but I came away going, did we all just see that? Did you see the bridge?
Yes.
The thing was insane. It was so pretty to look at and listen to, and even just the sounds and all of it. It all worked together so well. I think you could tell that everybody was having a really, really good time. And maybe it's because of the outlet during pandemic, there's so much seriousness going on and you get to focus on something that you're passionate about and bring something to life. And it was just really, really special. So, yeah. The wardrobe, though, as soon as you said that,
oh my goodness.
Every week I'm just like, did you see that shirt? I want those shoes. Where did that happen?
Where are the
Every
shoes?
week.
So good. It's so good.
Yeah. I mean, that level of difficulty is so high because you're back on the Enterprise. It's another prequel. It's redesigning the Enterprise in a lot of ways. So what a bold step to take. Aside from Star Trek, what in the world does Bruce do? What are you passionate about? I'd love to hear a bit about what you do when you're not managing the engine room of the Enterprise.
There's nothing other than Star Trek.
Yeah. Hey, me too. That is it.
I eat and breathe deep Star Trek.
Yeah.
My background is in performing arts, so theater primarily, but also as a musician. So I write and compose music and have done a few musicals in my time, singing and dancing. I back in, I guess it was 2011, a friend of mine asked me how I do what I do with such limited eyesight. I have 9% vision, and which is, it's basically like my right eye is artificial and my left eye is like looking down a straw. And then through like a murky glass of milk. So that's how I have always operated.
Wow.
And a friend of mine saw me on stage, had known me for years, but had no idea how it was that I see, because I'd started to use a white cane when I was in my mid-30s. So I decided to try and paint his portrait to show him how I see.
Oh, wow.
And that has led into this whole other career as a visual artist, as I have been, through the portrait series, been trying to capture or approximate or insinuate my way of seeing, but also that has become landscape painting and still life paintings and things like that. So my other career, my other what would you call it, side hustle? All I have is I don't have a pencil, it's all side. But it's painting, yeah. So I do portraits, and I started during the pandemic. I started offering them online. So I have a pretty intense practice of doing Zoom portraits. So I sit with people all over the world and we chat. And
that's so cool.
And I create a digital portrait. So that'll be like a time lapse of how the portrait gets done, interspersed with some of the audio from the Zoom interview.
Wow.
About a 3-minute little clip. And then I also, from that, will paint a acrylic 8x10 canvas, which some of the samples are behind me. I'm working towards 1,000 8x10 canvases, and I think I just painted portrait number 650.
My goodness.
So I'm getting there.
You're the Stephen King of being prolific with paintings at the minute. If you've just started since pandemic, that's impressive. That's incredible.
I just started the digital portraits since the pandemic. I started painting the acrylics back in 2011. So that was, it's been a few years now, but and that's kind of erupted into more stage work as well. So I have a one-person show where I paint a portrait of the entire audience while I tell the story of how I became a visually impaired visual artist, and I solve the mystery of who killed Tom Thomson. And Tom Thomson was a Canadian painter who died mysteriously in 1917. He paddled off across a lake in true Canadian fashion and disappeared. And there's many theories about how Thomson met his end. But his work inspired a lot of Canadian artists that came after him. So my solo show is I solve the mystery. Wink, wink.
That's amazing. I can't multitask at all. That is baffling to me.
It's quite a challenge to paint and talk and remember where you are in a story at the same time. But so that show is called Assassinating Thompson, and I've been touring it for almost 10 years now. I just did a run at the National Arts Centre in Ottawa here in Canada, and I am off to do a 1-month tour of the show, and this will be the month of February, and I'm touring through Manitoba.
Oh wow, that's amazing!
And it's going to be cold.
Yeah, it's going to be
but a lot of fun. Yeah,
anything stateside, anything nearby, or anything around these parts where people can find you?
In the U.S., no, not for the foreseeable future. I just hired an appearance manager, so someone who will hopefully negotiate to get me to more conventions.
They will not have to negotiate hard.
I had so much fun in Las Vegas that it really wouldn't take much for me to say yes to doing that again.
What was your favorite fan interaction at Vegas?
I'm not going to remember their names, but there were 2 blind engineers who work for Apple, I believe, or they develop voiceover technology, and they came, they're a couple, and they're blind, and both of them are albino, and they had seeing eye dogs, and they dressed up as engineers and had their photos taken with me.
Oh
and
my
they came back
goodness.
And we chatted, and they were like, us blind engineers have to stick together. And
wow.
That interaction, I will get that. That was really wonderful.
No.
That's heartwarming.
Like what an inspiration to show that you can do it.
Yeah, I think I signed 500 autographs in the 2 days, and every single interaction was just wonderful. There was only one guy who's like, well, I'm glad you're gone, but he was just because he wanted to be the different one in the line.
Right.
Like, everyone else has said they're happy.
he was the other guy that was going to play Hemmer potentially, and you beat him to it.
That's right.
That's amazing. Well, I have one extremely important question left, but before that,
yes.
Deneé, Aaron, any burning questions, anything you want to clear your hemorrhoids while we have the opportunity? Excise them.
Deneé was talking about like the behind the scenes stuff, and you mentioned an AR wall earlier, and I'm a tech guy, and I know Star Wars has the volume, like where they shoot, the Mandalorian, where it's this idea that you're actually acting in front of a background that is part of the scene. Is that what you were talking about with an AR wall? And what was that? What was that like working with?
It's like being on the holodeck. AR for reality. So it's floor to ceiling screens. The ceiling is all screens. And it's just a huge room where they have created the world. You kind of stand in front of it, and for instance, as we're walking across the planet in episode 109, that was all shot on the AR wall.
Oh wow!
If you're seeing the ship in the distance, we could see that instead of
no, you couldn't. That's incredible.
We could see everything, and same with engineering. Like the engineering, the practical stuff, the warp core and the little consoles that we're working on, those were all there. But everything else in engineering, we can see it. The camera can see it, and the beautiful thing about it is that it casts light correctly, and as the camera moves, the background will move with it to adjust.
It is a holodeck.
Exactly. So you really got the sense of where you were. It was so disorienting when one of the screens would go out, because suddenly there'd just be this big green square with a number 3 on it or something.
Oh my goodness.
Right.
We're going to stop because one of the screens is out.
You mean they didn't use like the yellow grid pattern when the screen was out? Like, how could you not do that?
Well, because they need it to be green screeny, and they need to be able to replace it. So,
and then when you'd be moving through the scene, and the background would be shifting, it could be a little disorienting. When they call cut, the camera would move back, and the whole room would kind of spin a little bit to go back to the. It was really wild.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, my first day on it, I was having a hard time just kind of readjusting to whenever they would switch the takes. It's incredible.
Wait, I'm not actually on the Enterprise. Hang on a minute.
It's so cool. It's such a jump, like big leap forward from green screen stuff where you're like acting with tennis balls and those kind of things. So yeah, I've been excited about that. The only other question I had was, it's clear everybody's getting along on that cast, and like some of the greatest shows, you hear the behind the scenes, and they're like, yeah, because we're all buddies, like we're all having a good time. How was the camaraderie on Strange New Worlds? Because it felt like you guys were just all having a great time.
This felt like season 7, not season 1.
Yeah, that's a good way.
Yeah, it really did. It was from the first moment I walked out and met my cohorts. It was incredibly welcoming. It was playful. It was supportive and celebratory. There was, I don't know if I'm telling stories out of school here, but there was a tradition on that set. And I arrived I was well into the series by the time they were well into shooting by the time I got there. So there was this tradition. I don't know who started it. I don't know where it came from, but every morning there was this medal, and it was appreciation medal that would be passed off from whoever got it the day before to someone today. And they would hang the medal off and say, this is for so-and-so, and this is what they do, and this is why we want to give the appreciation medal. And then there would just be this round of applause. They would either speak or not or whatever. And then anytime that person came into the vicinity, it was just applause.
Oh man, that's amazing.
That kind of vibe, I think, just typified what it was like to work on that show. And I think you're right. It felt like a season 7 more than just, hey, we're fresh off on this adventure. Yeah, it was. I tell you that season 1 wrap day was particularly emotional.
No, I bet.
Have you like written down, your thoughts and memories? You probably have talked to a lot of different, interview people, and your story and your perspective is out there. Are you kind of keeping it for yourself a little bit too, so that you can remember it? Like I forget things so quickly. I'm so in my moment that I'll have a really great thing happen. And I'm like, man, that was amazing. And then maybe I'll remember it later and it'll be great, but I forget to just like stop and write them down. So are you someone who journals that stuff, or? Oh
yeah, I do. I did the Artist Way, which was a creativity practice, but there's a book by Julia Cameron. It's a really, really great 12-week program, which I did about, 15 years ago. And one of the practices out of the Artist Way what's called morning pages. So first thing in the morning, you just write freehand stream of consciousness for 3 pages. And I've been doing that for a long time. So during my my Star Trek time, I mean, there's a full journal of just every morning writing out, what had happened the day before, what I was going into that day.
Wow.
I think there was one day where I just wrote out my lines for the day because it was a lot of techno babble.
What in Star Trek? Get out.
There's still some things that I hold for myself, but I also find that sharing those memories and sharing the whole experience with people helps me to remember it as well. Maybe that's just I'm at that stage in my life where I want to outsource my memory.
Yep, that's a great idea. Share other people's RAM. Yeah,
instantly.
Yeah. I bought another terabyte in the cloud just for that.
Yep. That's amazing.
The only other thing I think I would just say is probably something just on behalf of the people who listen to the show and just an appreciation for your time. And I think it's really, it might not seem like a ton, but it is, especially just people who, love Star Trek so much. They love the world of it. They love the people. They love where it crosses over with our jobs. And it's just really always fun to talk to other people who are doing something that's so different. And so to allow us to be curious and ask you questions and spend time with us, I know it's not just us here in the USS Enterprise that appreciate it, but those who are listening onto the podcast, not just when it comes out, but, we have new people that find the show and they'll go back and they'll listen to every episode specifically of Strange New Worlds. And even though the show has released in the past, we'll still get people interacting, in the future, which is kind of cool. Like the content, just like what you made, exists for such a long time. So it's going to be fun for them to, I think, have another place to connect with what the material that they enjoy and learn more about the passion behind it. So thank you for your time.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure. And honestly, since the start, my friend David Benjamin Tomlinson, who's on Discovery, plays Linus.
Oh, Linus is an absolute dream. What an absolute star.
So when I sort of went down into the world of what comes next, the show's coming, what kind of advice do you have? David had just done his first convention in Vegas as well, and comes from a theater background. Like he and I have done some stage work together before, and he was just such a great mentor in that regard. And said, listen, like the fans are going to absolutely pour the love out. And he says, and for the most part, and we spoke together as fans ourselves, said like we just want to connect and we just want to be seen, and we want to have that connection around such a great franchise and such an optimistic franchise, which I think is so needed in these days. I mean, it's like it's an eyedropper of hope in an ink-stained world, and we need more of it. And for me, the connection with the fans since the announcement, I mean, Star Trek Day, when they announced my name, I'm not kidding, it was 15 seconds later that my phone started going off with close friends who saw the announcement. Who said, oh my God, Star Trek, I had no idea. And it's like, that's what you've been doing for the last 8 months.
Suddenly the years make sense.
It's like the genie is out of the bottle, and I just adore it. And again, speaking as a fan myself, it's such a wonderfully rich, rewarding world, and I'm so happy just to be able to connect with folks about it. And the more the merrier. I mean, every single portrait I've done since Star Trek Day has been someone who's found me through my website because of Star Trek. And I was an artist I had a Patreon account that I think were 3 people, one of which was my mother, and that was 6-7 years that I had a Patreon account, getting, and feeling like I'm writing into the void, or I'm writing to just mom so that she knows I'm getting out of bed in the morning. But now there's this buoyancy of fandom and connection that, I will be forever grateful for that. So thank you.
Incredible. That's absolutely incredible. I have a far more important, far more sincere question to ask, and that is Anson Mount and Captain Pike's hair really that incredible? Is it in person? Is it that amazing?
We just went from the depths of sincerity.
Oh, that's good interviewing.
And then you jettisoned out into hair.
Yeah, it's the hair. We got to talk about the hair. The Pike's Peak.
Okay, it's your ship, buddy.
Yeah, I wanted to go as Pike's hair for Halloween. Just what a quaff, eh?
Right. It's a character in and of itself.
Yeah.
Like we need to know the product that the department used to do it, you know?
Oh,
I think that's a trade.
Trade
yeah, that would
secret.
be good,
Okay,
obviously.
yeah.
Everybody would
All
be.
right.
But then everybody would have it, and it wouldn't be unique.
Watch it be the same as the Gorn goo, you know?
Oh my
Like
goodness, yeah.
it's the same product.
Oh, the Gorn goo! Don't even get me started.
Oh, no.
Oh, totally go and go. Memories forever.
Is it still in, like, it got through the prosthetics?
Picking
it's
it out
just
of
in your
pores every now and
ear?
again.
Listen, this is just what happens when you work in gornography. This is just,
my
you know, like,
goodness.
it's just going to happen.
Hammer, gone but not forgotten.
That's right.
Wow.
Thank you so much for joining us. Sincerely, that was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you in a Star Trek thing
Somehow. But you know, until
maybe.
then, how can fans find you? I mean, obviously they could just search your name and find you on all active social media. You mentioned a Patreon as well. Like, what would you like to tell people about?
Well, I guess brucehorak.com, first of all, that's my website. And then from there, it's got links to everything that I'm doing. So I've got current events on there. You can book a portrait sitting through there. You can join up on Patreon through brucehorak.com. And yeah, other than that, I'm active on Instagram. Not so active on Twitter. I do read a lot on Twitter, but I don't tweet so much. I don't know if that's politically correct to talk about right now. But
what? There's stuff going on Twitter right now?
What? No, not at all.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Is your website where people need to go to sign the petition "Bring Back Hammer"? Is that's
everywhere?
Thing?
Every website has that built in.
Can we actually talk about? Could we make a movement to get Hammer back? I mean, so much of Star Trek history has been like fans, right? I mean, they wrote in during the original series
of course.
it was going to be canceled.
Right.
The fan campaign that got him back.
That's
so could I mean, if it comes from me, it seems more of like.
Oh yeah, that's true. Okay.
It seems
Right.
like, I'm trying to pay my mortgage or something.
It's much better if we pay your mortgage. That's
right.
cool.
So
I think we'll do it.
that's right. Yeah. And then it all accumulates into like the next Star Trek convention where we have the Hammer Stampede, the Hammerpede, or whatever. No, that's too much like centipede.
No, Hammerpede is something else. That's,
Nope. No,
Hammerpede, they're all connected.
It's a working title.
Nope.
That's a little asterisk there. That's a working title.
Human
Anyway.
Hammerpede? Nope.
No.
All right, we got to work on that.
That is a
It's
solemn
homework
promise.
for us. Okay.
As this episode comes out, we will attach a petition to it as well. Specifically bring back Hammer. Amazing.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for your time, and hopefully we'll see you very soon.
Bye, Bruce.
Thank you.
All the best to y'all.
Thanks for listening. Want to connect with the show? Our hailing frequencies are always open through captainspod@cinemasins.com. Like, comment, and subscribe on your podcast player of choice, and be sure to visit cinemasins.com.
What planet did Hammer die on?
None. Hammer will always live in our hearts.
Exactly. Valio Beta 5. That is the name of the planet, and it was on the USS Peregrine.
Are we gonna just? I mean, this poor man. Are we gonna ask him about that right away?
No, that's my intro. I'm not going to say, hey, where did you die?
No, I'm just saying. Like, do you think he wants to relive that over and over again? Come on.
Relive a death? He's not Doctor Who.
Sorry, I rearranged to put you two on top. If you would rather be bottom, Ian, that's fine. I didn't know.
No.
Are you generally a top
Out
or
of
a bottom?
context, that's a
or-
really.
Aaron, that's a personal question. I want you to see the counselor for some sensitivity training.
That sounds amazing.
Really? You think you need to be more sensitive?
Wait, what kind of sensitivity training are we talking about?
As in-
I may be confused.
Not asking, oh.
No hammer end is a good
No.
end.
No hammer end is a good end.
No, we need to fill those hammer voids.
It's so true. We need some sort of salve.
Yes.
Or one of those creams that has the long insertion tube with the holes on the side, you know, so
Yeah,
you can
something like that.
just
Little
really
grippers. Just
penetrates and also spreads
Did
very
everybody
well.
bring their donut pillow
wait, what?
for your hemorrhoids?
You can tell the person in the room who hasn't had hemorrhoids when they say,
Well, I don't know how detailed you want to get, but I can create rather large bowel movements.
Oh, man.
And so, yeah, those can...
you said that like it was your superpower.
It is. It kind of is. It is. I literally have to travel with a plunger. Like it's. I'm a giant man.
Are we?
This is when Bruce drops in on the background, by the way. And I'm not logged into the back end
want to drop in on my
StreamYard,
back
so
end.
I
That's
don't
for
know.
sure.
I don't know when he's gonna pop in here, but it's gonna.
Do not miss having you on the show at all.
Not at all. Not at all.
I just feel like you are watching, right, for him to just appear
He's
and
been
then
here and he
He's been here for
left.
10 minutes, he's gone.
Poor
He
guy.
left.
Bruce was like, wait a minute.
Nope.
You know how like a balloon sometimes has a little weak spot?
Yeah,
And the air
exactly.
just goes out of the extra weak spot and it has like a little dangle.
Can we
It's
stop?
like that, but
Can
for
we
your
stop?
intestines.
I'm gonna bring in Bruce. Hello, sir.
Yeah. Hello.
Hello.
You joined us at a crucial conversation, which you're partly to blame for.
Oh, good.
We were talking about how hemorrhoids work,
Yes.
and Aaron is to blame for why that is linked to you specifically.
I said on the show when you left that there was a hemorrhoid and that we were suffering from a case of the hemorrhoids. And
Yes.
yeah, so there you go.
Appreciate
That's all that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Naturally
What
that
a-
led to that.
Of course, that's when you come in and to the interview is just as we're
Yeah,
makes
discussing
sense.
It's
what
fantastic
they
timing.
are, how you get them, and how you cure them.
Well, I'm curious about all of those things, really.
Are we recording for posterity here? It will not be live, but am I hitting the record button so that we have
as a
backup?
backup.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay. Just
please,
making
yeah.
sure everybody knew that before I.
I thought
hit
you were
record.
already recording, so that's
No.
really.
Well, we
so
have
glad.
audio. We
Okay.
definitely have all this audio.
Good.
Oh, good.
That's the best, isn't it? When
Yeah.
we end up not recording audio.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
If you could
We
just
just
remember
send-
word for word everything that you said and then repeat it for us, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, you get an email in a couple of days. Hey, we're gonna need you to come back.
Here's your script.
We're gonna start with the hemorrhoid conversation straight off the top.
Right. At the end of our lunch break, we'd all go off to we couldn't eat together either. I mean, that was kind of the drag.
Oh.
Yeah, I bet.
About the COVID stuff was that in terms of the camaraderie, we couldn't really hang out much between takes. So we'd all go back to our trailers for lunch, and then you'd come back after lunch, and there's usually people were kind of slogging a little bit to get back into costume and get into the next take. But you could tell when Anson was showing up because you hear this like Van Halen from off in the distance, just like rocking. We'd walk into the green room where we're all getting ready, and a fucking Bluetooth speaker over his shoulder, blaring like heavy metal. We'd all just start rocking, and dancing. It's like
That's
the energy was
amazing.
up, like let's go in.
I'm trying to think also just immediately of how I can use the idea of the appreciation medal thing. It's like such a good idea for team
Yeah, it's a
building
great
to kind of.
Oh, it's awesome.
Isn't that great?
It's great.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really smart.
Yeah.
It's such an important thing. It seems at the moment like, oh, this is silly, we don't need it, but it feels so good when people just like recognize you, even if you know it's a forced situation.
You should do it in like your house. Just in the house. Just do it backwards and forwards.
Honestly, it was the rounds of applause, and you could tell where the person was because there would be applause at like the other end of the studio. It's like, oh, that's where
That's
Marjorie is.
That's where her is right now.
Like a bell on a cat.
Knowing that he knew going in that the character was going to
Yeah.
die, I bet we rewatched that performance and it makes so much more sense. And it made sense anyway, but the confidence he had that I am this character, I am a complete arc, I'm a complete person. Like he knew from day one that Hemmer wasn't going to survive the season. So his performance makes so much sense. It's beautiful.
Well, and it also kind of was built into his character a bit because his character even had that saying. I can't remember off the top of my head what it was, but it was essentially like, I have a feeling to know when my time has come, like when I have fulfilled it. And so that was kind of built into his character too. So he had that character confidence and the actor confidence behind it.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed reliving that character. I mean, I could talk to any of the people who acted
Just for
and
hours. I could have kept him for another hour.
chatting about it. But Hemmer was really special.
Oh, could you pass me my water? Across
You are
everything.
killing me here.
everything.
We do not bring
Uh-huh.
open containers into a studio. Stop. You're about to see actual angry Aaron.
Oh, no. Right, I am ready, my people. Are you guys ready?
Ready.
Beautiful. Captain's Pod. Yeah, gosh dang it.
Captain's Pod.
Somebody beam them into space now. Captain's Pod, stardate 51, 10, 12, 12. I've put in too many numbers into my log. Oh, no. Oh, no.
Listen. Clearly, you didn't need us to fuck this up for you. You can do it yourself.
The thing is, if the log gets too big, sometimes you can get hemorrhoids. That's the problem.
My goodness.
If you stuff the log too large.
There's some subspace tearing that goes on. Captain's Pod, Stardate 510122.4. Welcome aboard the Starship's Enterprise, and thank you for joining us as we take a brief shore leave from the world of CinemaSins to explore the universe of Star Trek. I'm your Captain Ian Whittington, and with me as always, she violates the Prime Directive simply by existing. It's Ambassador Deneé Hughes.
That's me. I'm a violator.
Yeah, no. Yep, okay. And
that's what you said. You said I violate the Prime Directive.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that makes you a violator. No, I guess it does. Yeah. Anyway,
you gave me the title.
No, you gave you the title.
Okay,
that is all you.
Somebody really important is going to be listening to this episode, and that's the title that you're giving me? Like, couldn't we go with something like,
Like what? Do you want to do another take? What do you want? You can pick.
Okay, like something with like really cool clothing and just a great story arc. Antenna preferred.
Okay.
When does this air?
So that's a great question.
This was just for us, Bruce.
Yeah.
We don't ever plan on airing it.
No, that recording.
We probably should have told you that, but
it will air when Hemmer returns. Actually, we're gonna hold on to it.
No.
Yeah,
that's awful.